Hi, everybody. Welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. I just came across this article published on February 1st. Opinion. Is anyone else exhausted by all the shows pretending to represent Latter-day Saint women? This is on Deseret News. This is an opinion piece by Whitney Foote. I just want to read her little bio right here. Whitney Foote is a writer and entrepreneur who also founded the Utah Current Needs Facebook group in 2020. She lives in Utah with her husband and 3 children and is finishing her first novel. Awesome. Okay, so I want to give my opinion about her opinion. I think this is a really well written article, and I feel like a lot of people feel this way. I know that they do. And there's been a lot of good social media influencers that have been pushing back against these ridiculous shows that have come out over the last few years. But I feel like I have some good perspective on it. We're going to look at this from a few different angles. So, all right, Whitney starts out, enough is enough. All right, she's not having it anymore. Enough is enough. In the past 5 years, we have been inundated with multiple Hollywood shows, widely promoted as somehow offering a truer inside look at what a woman who is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is. Yeah, this whole thing, a truer inside look. My first exposure to this, I think, was Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Like that title is just audacious. But even more, this promotional video and picture that they took where you have these wives that are members of the church and they're wearing these weird blue coats in front of the Provo temple. And for anyone that isn't familiar with the church, they would probably associate this with something like this, right? The Amish. Or maybe this TV show, or I think it's like on Netflix. Is it a Netflix original? I don't know. Handmaid's Tale. And on the surface, it's just ridiculous because as members of the church, we know that like this is almost trying to portray like, oh, there's a secret world here, like there is with the Amish or Handmaid's Tale or like some cult out there where it's like, oh yeah, everything is very rigid. There's all these like very strict rules that you have to adhere to in the home. We're making buttermilk and milking cows, and we're doing all these like it feels contrived. It feels contrived. The real lives of wives that are members of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, it's just like regular everyday stuff. There's nothing going on here. Nothing that's interesting enough for TV. I haven't watched this show. I don't plan to, but it's just silly the way that it presents itself. At least in the way that it presents itself, it's just silly. I have more to say about that in just a minute, though. Okay, so, and some people are believing it. After posting on Facebook my concerns about these shows, one Latter-day Saint mother, and I'm blocking out the name here because I have a critique, wrote me saying her children believe these shows accurately depict Latter-day Saint women in Utah. Okay, so I think there's kind of one of two ways that you can look at this. If her children believe that this is an accurate representation, either number one, they're being brainwashed by these shows, or they're being influenced to think that this is reality outside of their home, which hopefully these children, when they look at their own family, they realize that that's not the truth just by looking at their own family. But you might think, well, my family might be the exception. Other families are actually like what I'm seeing on TV. And if that's the case, I'm just wondering if these children are having exposure to other members of the church. If you live in Utah, you probably do have a lot of friends that are members of the church. That's how it was for me when I was growing up. I'd say it was probably like half and half. Half my friends were members of the church and half weren't. I grew up in the Salt Lake Valley. So it wasn't really a mystery to me what a typical family of the church looks like. Every family is going to be different, obviously. But as far as commonalities, I'm not going to be thrown off by a show. So it's kind of confusing. So that's one take. The other take, as far as this statement is concerned, is maybe the children are saying, yep, that's actually what it's like because it's reality. And if that's the case, then I have to wonder, like, what community are they living in? Because there's probably certain areas that might be more where these type of people flock to. You know, people that don't really live the standards of the church and they're living a worldly lifestyle. There might be certain cities, towns, communities, neighborhoods where that's actually the case. And so the children are like, yeah, this matches our neighborhood. I mean, so I don't know. It's just an interesting thing. But I think that anybody who's had any experience with the church realizes that there's a huge disconnect between the show and just regular Latter-day Saint women in families. Okay, continuing. And my life is certainly not a secret or something to be ashamed of. We'll talk about this key word in just a minute, secret. Do you know what I really did this week as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ? Let me lay it out for you. Number 1, I attended church where I was sustained as a leader to young women ages 11 to 18 in my area. Since then, I have laid awake at night hoping and praying that they will see themselves as I see them, as God sees them. I'm going to skip down. My message to Hollywood: don't belittle what active Latter-day Saint women actually do with their time. Number 2, I also wore sacred temple garments this week. They aren't a joke. They aren't a laughing matter. I made promises to God, much like many other denominations around the world that wear clothing in remembrance of their promises with God. I'm not forced to do it. I choose it. The promises I made to God are sacred to me. Does anyone even know what sacred means anymore? That's a valid question, and I think the answer is no. I think that the answer is no. Number 3, I loved my neighbors. I don't know a single woman in my church group who treats another person in nasty ways like these women being featured in Hollywood shows. The women in my neighborhood cry with me. They bring me dinner when emergencies happen. They text me encouraging things. They share their successes with me. They invite me to do uplifting things. They give me hugs when they see me. Not once have they started drama for me intentionally or gotten together to gossip about me. Okay. That's true. I know that that's true. I know that that generally reflects members of the church and good mothers and wives. The problem is we're talking about Hollywood, right? Hollywood is not a charity. It's not some kind of like philanthropy that's providing a service to accurately depict things, although it can. But this isn't going to make for a very interesting show. If they were to, like I was just saying, if they were to follow around just a regular member of the church, like a mother in the church, I don't know that it would look much different aside from going to church and living righteously. I don't know that it'd be much different than women of the world. You know, there's like the difference is, of course, we don't swear, we don't drink, we um, are much more toned down than the world at large. That's not interesting, you know. Uh, the show watching you attend church, or the show filming you hoping and praying, wearing your garments, loving your neighbors. That's not good. That's not good entertainment. And so that's kind of where the problem is, isn't it? Because people are looking for entertainment. And it makes me think of this horrible show. Makes me think of this horrible show from the, I don't know, was it just in the 90s? I know it was in the 90s. I don't know how long it went for. Jerry Springer, that was all about drama. Because, like it or not, people want entertainment. They want the dopamine flowing in their brains. And there's certain things that do it. And one of those things is drama and debate and, raw emotions and people acting like animals. And that's what's exciting. That's what gets the dopamine going. And so they have to find, because it's a business, they're trying to make money, they're trying to get an audience. So uh, they've had success with other reality shows, and naturally you want to expand and keep it fresh. And so it's like, okay, what other weird group of people can we focus on now? Um, and it's not going to be the church, except if you have some troublemakers, people that clearly don't live the standards, people that are not happy with the church, like they're members of the church, but they don't really like the church. That's interesting. That's interesting. There was this whole thing about them like getting into soft swinging and all these weird things. And that kind of stuff is interesting because, where there's a problem, people are interested with fixing that problem. I don't know. You get what I'm trying to say. So let's go back here to the article. None of the sacrifice, service, and compassion common among Latter day Saint women comes through in dramatic portrayals from The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, and now The Bachelorette. Yeah, that's kind of the new thing. That might be what prompted this article. You have Taylor Frankie Paul and from what I can tell, I did a little bit of research. It seems like she still is a member of the church, but she's been named the next Bachelorette. And this TV show it's probably not the most quality thing that you could watch. It taps into, fights and drama and gossip and just all the garbage that gets the dopamine flowing. And so that's why people watch it, you know? Um, After I posted my feelings about these shows on social media, several Latter day Saint women wrote me or commented on my post, also sharing their feelings. The shows were, quote unquote, all kind of meh and silly at first, Latter day Saint Katie Elizabeth Seitz told me. But now it's everywhere and absolutely not true or representative of our faith and who we are. I want to say something about that, right? Because there's a concern that this is harming the church. Um, it definitely feels like Satan is involved, the adversary, trying to attack the church. Um, but I did this I think the last time that I talked about these TV shows. Let's read a couple scriptures and then a quote. So this is 2 Nephi chapter 27, verses 2 through 3. And when that day shall come, they shall be visited of the Lord of hosts with thunder and with earthquake and with a great noise and with storm and with tempest and with the flame of devouring fire. All the nations that fight against Zion. And by the way, I think this applies just to all people, whether it's a TV show, whether it's people that are apostate, people that are attacking the church, whether inside the church or outside the church. Okay. And all the nations that fight against Zion in that distress her shall be as a dream of a night vision. Yea, it shall be unto them as even as unto a hungry man which dreameth, and behold, he eateth, but he awaketh, and his soul is empty. Or like unto a thirsty man which dreameth, and behold, he drinketh, but he awaketh, and behold, he is faint, and his soul hath appetite. Yea, even so shall the multitude of all the nations be that fight against Zion. And then in Doctrine and Covenants 109, 25 through 26, that no weapon formed against them shall prosper. And so I guess you have to ask yourself, do you believe that? Do you think that there's going to be some TV show or podcast or movie or play, like the Book of Mormon play? Do you think there's going to be anything that, any weapon of the adversary that's ultimately going to prosper and defeat the saints in these last days? And then in eternity, of course not. That no weapon formed against them shall prosper, that he who diggeth a pit for them shall fall into the same himself. That no combination of wickedness shall have power to rise up and prevail over thy people, upon whom thy name shall be put in this house. So I'm honestly not worried about it. I'm not, because I know who wins. And we know that there's a separation of wheat and tares. In fact, that makes me think of something I probably should have pulled up. Maybe I will. Let's read this quote first, though. This is from Brigham Young, Journal of Discourses, Volume 7, page 145. A gentleman said to me not long ago, "You Mormons scare us. You are here in the mountains, and this expedition would not have been sent against you, but you frighten us by taking such big strides." Mormonism is but a few years old, and it has circumscribed the globe. It has penetrated into almost every nation under heaven and bears down in a remarkable manner all opposition wherever your people go. All opposition wherever your people go. It seems to swallow up our religion, political policies, and philosophy. And if we do not stop you, it would appear that you will finally swallow up the world. I replied, "If the people will let us alone, we will preach the gospel in peace, civilly, kindly, mildly, and we'll teach the people how to obtain that eternal life that is proffered to all. But will they let us alone? No. And you think we take large strides." He rose from his chair saying, "You take 10 or 12 strides at once, while we go creeping along. You are away yonder. Well, you kicked us there, and we cannot help going. Every time you kick Mormonism, you kick it upstairs, and you never kick it downstairs. The Lord Almighty so orders it. And let me tell you that what our Christian friends are now doing for us makes more for the kingdom of heaven than the elders could in many years preaching." So that's kind of interesting, right? If we just replace what our Christian friends are now doing, if we replace that with these TV shows, let's see what that sounds like. The Lord Almighty so orders it. And let me tell you that what the secret lives of Mormon wives are now doing for us makes us more for the kingdom of heaven than the elders could in many years preaching it. I think that could be true because it's getting a lot of eyeballs on the church. So even though it's not an accurate depiction of a regular member of the church, and although there's going to be people in the audience that dislike the church and it's not going to help that any, there's other people that might become curious and want to know more about the church, because people who have brains and hearts realize that reality TV isn't really reality. A lot of times it's contrived. So, for example, I right now, so now that we're done watching Mythbusters and we've watched a bunch of Star Trek series, like my wife and I, we watch these TV shows at night to kind of wind down. We decided to start. We decided to start watching Sister Wives, which we had done before, but only up until a certain point, and then the seasons have kept going, and so we want to see like what's going on. And we're just kind of like at the very beginning. And so what's going on here? Okay, this is how reality TV works. This is like the epitome of it. So the family decided to spend Christmas up in the mountains, and they rented a cabin. And while they were there, they were sledding. And you know how like they do like the little previews of like, oh, later in the show, this is going to happen. They kept showing this part where one of the wives, Mary, was riding on this sled, and then it had a part where it's like, oh my gosh, she hit into the side of the cabin, and you were left thinking like, oh my gosh, did she get injured? Did she break a bone? Did she sprain her ankle or something like that? And no, guess what happened? She she hit the side of the building and then got up and everything was okay. Okay. So, and I listen. I do not blame reality TV or any entertainment for this necessarily. There are lines that need to be drawn, but you have to make things entertaining. You have to work with what you've got. Otherwise, people are not going to watch your show, or they're not going to keep watching the show. And it's fine, unless it's just like a blatant lie. I was not like, I did not have the attitude of like, oh, I'm never going to watch this show ever again. That was just such a big, no, it's not a big deal. It was kind of interesting. It was, it was a funny moment. I'm glad that she didn't get seriously injured. But, anyway, just this whole thing, like, I got lost with what I was saying. Let's find let's find that other thing I wanted to share that just came to me. We're going to go to my spreadsheet called quotes, visions, and visitations. Let's see, Control F, goats. If I could spell that correctly. Yeah, here we go. This is also from Brigham Young. This was the spring of 1848. This is a timeline of visions, visitations, near-death experiences, anytime that somebody has come in contact with someone from the other side, essentially, or an angel or whatever. Okay. Dang, this is a little bit longer than I thought. We'll read this one. Journal of Discourses 18, pages 244 to 245. Okay, just at that time, I had this dream, which I will now relate. I thought I had started and gone past the hot springs, which is about 4 miles north of this city. I was going after my goats. When I had gone round the point of the mountain by the hot springs and had got about half a mile on the rise of ground beyond the spring, whom should I meet but brother Joseph Smith? He had a wagon with no bed on, and with bottom boards and tents and camp equipage piled on. Somebody sat on the wagon driving the team. Behind the team, I saw a great flock of sheep. I heard their bleating and saw some goats among them. I looked at them and thought, this is curious, Brother Joseph. Sorry. This is curious. Brother Joseph has been up to Captain Brown's and got my goats. There were men driving the sheep, and some of the sheep, I should think, were 3.5 feet high, with large, fine, beautiful white fleeces, and they looked so lovely and pure. Others were of moderate size and pure and white, and in fact, there were sheep of all sizes with fleeces clean, pure, and white. Then I saw some that were dark and spotted, of all colors and sizes and kinds, and their fleeces were dirty and they looked inferior. Some of these were a pretty good size, but not as large as some of the large, fine, clean sheep. And altogether, there was a multitude of them, of all sizes and kinds, and goats of all colors, sizes, and kinds mixed among them. Joseph stopped the wagon, and the sheep kept rushing up until there was an immense herd. I looked in Joseph's eye and laughed, just as I had many a time when he was alive, about some trifling thing or another. And said I, Joseph, you've got the darnest flock of sheep I ever saw in my life. What are you going to do with them? What on earth are they for? Joseph looked cuttingly out of his eyes, just as he used to at times, and said they are all good in their places. When I awoke in the morning, I did not find any fault with those who wanted to go to California. I said, if they want to go, let them go, and we will do all we can to save them. I have no more fault to find. The sheep and the goats will run together. But Joseph says they are all good in their places. So Brigham Young was really concerned after the Saints got to the Salt Lake Valley. The conditions were really difficult, and there were people that wanted to go to California because of the gold rush. And he's like, no, we're supposed to stay here. I saw this place in vision. It's rough right now, but it's going to work out. Please don't go. And he was giving him a lot of stress. And so he had this dream in which he had an encounter with Joseph Smith. And the lesson was, look, people have their agency. Go ahead and let them go. There's like, I think later on in that discourse, or maybe the part that I skipped, or maybe the other account that I had there, it talked about the fact that the Lord has these different figures that he allows to be set up. Like you have Pharaoh, for example, or in this case, you have The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives and all these other shows. And they have a purpose. They fulfill a function. They draw away people that don't have strong testimonies. We're here to be tested. Which one are you going to choose? Are you going to be with the mainstream of the church? Are you going to keep your covenants? Or are you going to go with these people that are trying to get you away from the church and being bad examples? It's up to you. Just let them be. You decide. And so we know that we're getting close to the second coming, and there's going to be this acceleration of separation of wheat and tares. So just let it be. Let it be. And all the while, as a pit is being dug for the church, they'll fall into themselves. And I don't mean any of these like women individually. I don't know them. Hopefully they'll just get back on the covenant path, do whatever they need to do to live the way that they should. But yeah, okay. So let's go back to the article. To be so consistently and profoundly misrepresented by popular media is frustrating, especially because the authentic details of most of the lives of believing Latter-day Saint women are getting missed. And I'm not alone in being exhausted by it all. I've never met a Latter-day Saint woman who acts like these women do, wrote Mindy Powell on the same post. Been in Utah and Idaho my whole life. Yeah, exactly. They have to find those that are entertainment worthy. They're dealing in dopamine and entertainment. Okay, and then she says, so how do we really act? Well, in a way that's not good for TV. And that's fine. That's a good thing. Later on, to be clear, it isn't the expression of these women's personal experiences on the shows that fuels the fire. It is the pretense of somehow representing women of our faith and the outright mockery of these things we hold sacred. With the opening scenes in The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives portraying temples and nods at baptism, it is hard to stomach. In a similar vein, Latter-day Saint Robin Buckwalter wrote me about feeling quote unquote super sick of dramatic narratives like these being promoted as being anything remotely connected with Latter-day Saint women. Later on, um, but please find a new storyline, one that tries to represent women in our faith. I am raising young women while also seeking to be a role model to other young women. And so many of us yearn for these young women to see more authentic public representation, or sorry, so many of us yearn for these young women to see more authentic public representation of women who follow Jesus Christ in how they live and treat people. Well, the thing about it, you shouldn't look to reality TV for authentic or public representations of anything. Like I said, not everything in reality TV is false. It's not all a complete fiction, but a lot of it is contrived. A lot of it is acting. Even if there's not a script being given to them, you act differently on TV than you do when nobody's watching, right? So that by itself skews reality. But I'm not worried about my kids. I just have conversations with them about reality TV. They know, they understand. They live in reality. Whenever we watch these type of shows, we talk about it. So I think you be a parent and you help them see what reality actually is. And then if you're looking for role models, then look at people in your ward, your stake. Look to good influences in the world. And, not necessarily, there are people in Hollywood that are good. So focus on the good people, or just focus on people outside of Hollywood, real people. Um, I was like looking into this because I think I missed a part, but she was talking about, have you seen any other group that's been so misrepresented or so attacked? It was something along those lines. And honestly, yeah, you have all these Amish shows, which don't necessarily paint the Amish faith in a positive light. I wouldn't say. If I was Amish, I'd probably be upset at these shows. You have all the polygamy shows. There's a bunch of those. I'd say probably the biggest one, I think, is Sister Wives. I think that's the one that kind of kicked it off for all these other ones. Um, and all these other ones come into being because, again, you have the network that's trying to make money. And of course, because they're a business, they're for profit. And so it's like, okay, that was a hit. How do we do that again? Oh, let's try a different family. Oh, let's try this. And then you get stuff like this. This is on Salt Lake Tribune. In new Utah set reality show, former Kingston women reveal the oppressive, abusive side of polygamy. Two women who grew up inside one of Utah's most well-known polygamous families have little patience for reality TV shows like Sister Wives and My Five Wives. Andrea and Jessica were emotionally and physically abused by their polygamous father, John Daniel Kingston. In 2004, they made headlines when Andrea, then 12, and Jessica, then 15, ran away from home and were eventually removed from the custody of their father and mother, Heidi Mattingly Foster, one of Kingston's polygamous wives. Andrea, Jessica, and their half-sister Chanel, who no longer have the Kingston last name, are at the center of LMN's new reality show, Escaping Polygamy. It's 180 degrees from other shows that attempt to normalize plural marriage, which that's a pretty big assumption. I think it's just networks trying to earn money off of something that's interesting and strange and outside of everyday experience. It's 180 degrees from other shows that attempt to normalize plural marriage, as it shows the three women helping members of the quote unquote order get out of the Kingston clan. Quote, we talked about how if we did this, we could actually show people what's really going on in polygamy. You guys, I'm not discounting their experience or what the show is accomplishing, but I'm not sure how much reality you get out of reality TV. This actually just seems, in a sense, from the network's point of view, as a way to keep things fresh. That's what I think. I think, okay, we've done we've done Sister Wives, we've done gosh, I thought that we've done Big Love. Um, there's Poly Family. That's not polygamy. That's something else. But it's like you want to keep it going, and so what do? You got to keep it fresh. We're out of couples. This isn't really working anymore. We tried the poly family thing. That's not as popular. Let's try doing the anti polygamy side now. And this is from one of our reality families, and so it's just it's. I feel like that's all that it is. Um, Andrea said in an interview with the Salt Lake Tribune, and show people it's not a bunch of happy women with these obedient, beautiful children following this one man and everyone's happy. That's not really how it is. Well, and that's a problem by itself. Trying to paint an entire religion community with one stroke. That's not how reality is. Within these different polygamous groups, I guarantee you there are very happy families, and then there are also miserable families. Because guess what? That's how it is in regular religion. With monogamous relationships, you have some people that get divorced, you have some people that cheat, you have some people that are faithful and happy. There's not like, if they were doing a TV show about monogamy, that would be a ridiculous statement to be like, well, yeah, they paint monogamy as like happy and everything's fine, but that's not really how monogamy is. Speak for yourself. Speak for your marriage or your family. That's not the same with me. It's not the same with my family and extended family. So you can't that's another problem with these reality shows, is that it's like you're making judgments on an entire religion based on a few people, one family or a collection of people. I might give you kind of a taste, a little bit, but it's mostly just entertainment. Um, by the way, here in Missouri, I found out that there's a polygamous polygamous community about 2 hours south of Independence in the Ozarks, and they don't have like an official name. They're not FLDS. They're not UAB, which is the group that the Sister Wives belong to. It's like just a mix of people that practice plural marriage, and they live in Missouri on this kind of like this. It's kind of a compound. It's a large area that they own, and somehow they were able to construct this temple. This is they call it the Temple of God in Arnica. And it's relatively new. It was dedicated, I think, just a couple years ago. I'd have to go back and double check everything, but I thought that was kind of interesting. This is on my other channel called Explore Church Sites. I'll put a link for this in the description box below in case you want to take a look. I walk all around it and then go down into this other area where there's like a cemetery and stuff like that. But yeah, look at this. I meant to, I never know how these videos are going to flow necessarily. I try and plan it out, but I just never know exactly. I was going to bring this up earlier. If you want Hollywood to make a show that accurately depicts members of the church, it would probably perform the same way as this show, if not worse. This is real life Catholic. I have no idea who that sounds interesting to. It has a high IMDb rating, but looks like it only went for 2 seasons. 2017 and 2019. And it's like, there's a lot of Catholics. There's not a lot of mystery there. The life of a real Catholic, again, there's all sorts of Catholics all throughout the world. And within the church, there's a wide spectrum of how people practice that faith. So like, this is basically meaningless. Real life Catholic. You might as well just say real life human being, because everyone's so different, you know? So I don't anticipate that we're going to get a fair TV show about the church that's going to end up on TLC or anything like that. And that's fine. I think these shows have their functions. I think there's multiple functions that are performed. Like I said, I think it helps separate wheat and tares, for one. Number two, for people that aren't familiar with the church, it might get them curious about the church. And then there's all sorts of lessons that could possibly be learned as you watch the show, and you just study human behavior and spirituality. There's probably so much being done. So I'm not worried about it myself. I'm just trying to see if I'm missing anything. I was going to read a couple other quotes, but yeah, I'm not going to read those. So anyway, I hope that this helps somebody. If you haven't considered some of these points, I hope it gives you some relief. I don't know if Whitney Foote is going to watch my video, but hopefully this gives you a different point of view if you do watch it. Some things to think about. But that's going to be it for this one. I'll talk to you guys later.